Hello there, fam, and welcome to the Narrow Gate. Thank you for squeezing in here. Something that is incredibly fascinating to me is childhood development. And I think one of the most heartbreaking parts of childhood development is when you see a baby and there's something right in front of them that they're just trying to reach for, but just can't figure out how to move the right muscles to grab that thing that is right in front of them. And oftentimes, this is so frustrating for the child that they'll start crying. Now, as I've interacted more and more with the world, I've found that normal old people like me and you oftentimes find ourselves in the same camp as those small babies. We see something so clearly that seems to be right in front of us, but we just can't grab it and we don't know why. And this is a huge struggle for us. And what exactly is that we're trying to grab? It could be all sorts of things. It could be something like we want a certain job, or we want to manifest a certain skill so that we have that skill. It could be we want to have friends, right? We want to have close friendships, but we can't obtain them, and sometimes it feels like, we're just swinging our arms all over the place, just trying to grab onto those close friendships, or whatever it may be. So the question I plan to answer today is, if God's real, then why does he let us struggle? So one of the first things I want to put on the table in this video is that sometimes there is a mindset of that since God has the power to do anything that happens must happen because God desires for it to happen. Now, as a kid, I definitely thought this was the case. However, now I don't really think that way. I feel as though the Bible makes it very clear that, for example, God doesn't desire that anyone goes to hell. However, people are going to go to hell. The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he's patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance. So I feel the Bible makes it very clear that God isn't something like this all-powerful puppet master pulling the strings on every single thing. However, he gives us free will.
Team free will.
And that brings me to my first point that is actually along the topic of this video, and that is that I think a lot of times it's not God that causes us to struggle, it's the sin of our fellow brothers, our fellow human brothers, that persecutes us. And for an example, when talking about struggling, a verse that will often come up is this one right here. However, when we look at it more in context, what we actually find is that Paul is not talking about something that's been given to him by God, it seems. It seems like he's talking about merely the persecution by the people around him. So when I say, if we look in context, what I'm talking about here, if you look at the previous chapter, it's all about persecution. And something that we need to remember when looking through the Bible is that the separations of chapters weren't actually originally written into the Bible. So it's not the original author that divided the passage right there, but instead it's us that did that. So we tend to think of these two verses as like a brand new thought, but to me, I'm not convinced that that is the case. To me, it seems more likely that actually it's just a continuation of the same thought on persecution, and something else to go along with that is right here in this following verse, where he's basically, from my understanding, talking about what the thorn in the flesh is. So there's my first point, is that oftentimes God allows us to struggle not because he actually desires for us to struggle, but because he gives us free will, and a lot of times because of the sin of the people around us, or because of our own sin, we'll lead ourselves to struggle. So it might be actually in that passage we just looked at about the thorn in the flesh, where we actually find the best answer we have to that question. And that's something like, when we are weak, we are strong. Now, what exactly does that mean? I want to make this real clear. I don't necessarily know. However, I can offer you my speculation. I think what it means is that when you are benefiting the kingdom of heaven, then the world will attack you, right? And then we go into like the idea of turning the other cheek, right? And how this is something that's kind of seen as a weakness thing. Oh, if you're willing to turn the other cheek, I guess you're just weak. I didn't mean to rhyme. I apologize.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
So I think what's saying is something like a earthly weakness or a fleshly weakness is equivalent to a heavenly strength. And that's kind of my guess on what Paul is talking about here. And as I pointed out a few weeks ago in my video on temptation, right here in this following verse, it sounds like Jesus was actually brought into the desert with the sole purpose of being tempted. If we look at most biblical heroes, they actually entered into a sort of similar period of trial as they were about to begin their ministry. And that's what we have with Jesus being tempted by the devil. That's also what we have with King David being chased around by Saul. That's what we have with Joseph being sold into slavery. So does God want these to take place? I can't really say that I have a firm answer on that.
I do not know.
Because any answer I would say wouldn't really quite sit right with me. So I would love it if you had opinions on that particular matter, if you could share it in the comments, because I'm not entirely sure about that. It does seem from that beginning passage that Jesus was sent with the sole purpose of being tested. I don't entirely know why that would be, but I do think that what we can see here in these struggles before ministry is that, at least what I believe, is that these struggles are something like the devil attempting to push us away from our ministry that God has planned for us. So I think oftentimes in our lives, when we're starting a ministry, the devil will put things in our way that we'll have to overcome, right? He'll place Sauls in our lives that will be trying to kill us. Now I think there's an argument here for maybe the struggle is something like a preparation for being in a place of ministry, right? We know from many passages in the Bible that the world hates people who follow Jesus and will persecute them because of Jesus. And in the Sermon in the Mount, Jesus says that it's a blessing when people persecute us because of Jesus. I'll link that video somewhere. But maybe God puts us through these struggles prior to our ministry to prepare us for what it's going to be like living for God when the people around us, to get back to my point number one in this video, the people around us will turn against us. And maybe this is God just trying to show us the ropes, so to speak. And if this is the case, maybe a good example of this would be something like Paul on the road to... Where did Paul? On the road to Damascus. Alright, so thank you for watching. This is all I have for this video. I know there's much more we could get into on like the problem of evil. That will be a video that I'll make later on, but of course, you know, if you liked this video, like it. If you are in love with this video, hit subscribe so I'll throw some more stuff similar at you. But at the end of the day, thank you for watching. I hope that you got something out of this, but also I hope that you, dear viewer, do not forget to brush your teeth. Okay, bye.